NIO stock finished the week about $6.90. Not a surprise to me at all. In fact, I did this video early on in the week, and I talked about how NIO stock, it won't surprise me, or it wouldn't surprise me rather, if we would see NIO at or around the $7 price point to end the week. This is one of the things I cited in that video, that I noticed a significant increase on the out of the money calls that were on the options expiry for October 24th. And in fact, it was about a 40,000 uptick by the end of the week. So that's a whole lot of contracts. And with the reality that we have not only huge market makers who have short or put positions in NIO, but they also get a pass on FTDs, fail to delivers, when they could be manipulating stock price or keeping it in a certain range. It's just not shocking to me that, some of these things go on in the super short term. They're looking at maximizing their profits in the short term and taking advantage of traders, especially if there are a lot of retail investors who are trying to trade this and are trying to trade out of the money. So what's going to happen this week? Well, I'll give you a bear and a bull case, and we'll track things throughout the week. But on the screen over on the right hand side, the latest data we have access to with the white lines, which represent the FTDs, goes through almost the end of September. And you see that they've been upticking. They've actually remained elevated. We've got to go quite a ways back to see them actually drop off. And the only time frame where they were maybe at a normal level is when NIO stock was ranging between about 40 and 60 plus dollars. So we also had big volume for NIO stock during that time frame, especially through here. And so here's my thought. If we tie in and now look at short term and kind of try to predict a little bit what will happen this week, I would say that it's positive that NIO stock hasn't come down further because of the low trade volume. For example, on Friday, October 24th, only 34 million shares traded during the day. The day before that, fewer than 30 million. The day before that, less than 50 million, 31 million, 30, not even 39 million. So here's the thing. When NIO stock has moved up and moved up aggressively, we've seen it with a lot of volume, 100 million share trade volume on the daily side of things. So the bullish side, or my view or take on this, is the fact that big money, including the market makers and or those with short or put positions, probably could have brought the stock price down more, but they didn't. Leads me to think that we could still be in this uptrend. Let me go the right way here, which I think it's fair to say probably started back in about July. We did have this dip right here in the very shorter term, which is the dilution point for NIO. But I think it's hard to argue with NIO remaining at these levels that we really hadn't seen for about the last year, that you could see more bullish price action if we get a pump on volume. So that's kind of the bullish thought, or that side of things. Also, there's this, again, kind of aligning with the bullish side, or that case or view or thesis, is this huge number is now gone. We're past this expiry date with this. What I saw, just over the last week, this number increased significantly by like over 40,000 contracts out of the money. So perhaps with not as much being on the table or at stake, or less profit maybe that the market makers could actually generate in the short term, they may not care. But if we flip the script and now look at the bear case, you say, well, gosh, with such low volume, they can still control stock price, and you've still got this max pain at $7 for the next few weeks. So maybe we stay in this sort of consolidation period. And looking ahead, this is kind of an interesting one here. The November 21st, you've got a lot of action in the money and out of the money on the call side. So I don't know. It's something we'll keep tracking in the short term. And this video, probably I've already gone a little longer than I meant to. You know what? I'll go ahead and share a few other things. I'll just create timestamps for this video. And by the way, I'm recording this on Saturday, October 25th. So there's your timestamp or date and timestamp for the video. This is coming, in November, we'll get this. My guess is we will see a similar consistent cadence here, with maybe an early, in the first week of November, maybe having the third quarter earnings. And so I'll be curious what happens with that or from that. Again, kind of, I always like to look at things with not just one view, but if we want to see and think about things with a bear case versus a bull case, then perhaps the bear case remains in play, where if you look at this, even if NIO does come in and report a profitable fourth quarter, they usually don't actually report and talk about it until the next year. So if big money wants to keep this thing down through the end of the year, I think the bear case argument is that they can do that. Now, if NIO figures out and maybe decides to report earlier, maybe that changes things, but I don't know. Just from the standpoint of the view from Wall Street folks typically being so short term, and that means intra-year a lot of the times within the year, I think that's kind of the bear case. The bull case is, well, NIO is so undervalued, and it's simply a matter of time or perhaps some positive news flow that is going to help propel NIO, and we'll see that trade volume spike, and then the stock price start popping again as well. Again, kind of the bear versus bull. I like thinking about both scenarios, and with this happening, the Onvo L90, and this was actually put out or posted on this date that I'm recording, October 25th. So 30,000 units of the Onvo L90 in less than 90 days. That's phenomenal, and it's a sign that NIO is getting some of these things kind of worked out. This is also relevant and in line with not just for the fourth quarter, but setting up into a strong start to the year in 2026. The NIO ES8 and the monthly production number jumping to 15,000 in December. So again, those things, even just in the short term ahead and upcoming months, we have a lot of positive things happening. Also, this was one of the specialty versions or models that NIO came out with, and I've referenced this before. They seem to do very well when they do these, about 500 to 600 of these vehicles, and they'll do like a special edition, and they seem to sell them out all the time when they do it. So again, I think this is something we could see more of moving forward, since it's gone well for NIO. As of September 2025, this is BEVs, just the battery electric vehicle brands, and you've got NIO and Onvo separate. Onvo at the 17th spot, and this is just with recently starting the Onvo L90s. So these numbers should continue to propel NIO with the Onvo sub-brand up the charts, and then the NIO brand as well, now that they have done the refresh of the ES8, which is in such high demand. Again, I think we'll see these numbers go up. So a lot of positive things, but also this is still there's a big pivot point that still needs to happen across the entire Chinese market. You've got Audi, BMW, and Mercedes, these three all having done easily 300,000 in their ICE or gas sales year to date. So there's a huge market share that's still out there to be taken. And if NIO can continue to forge ahead and become known, more across the country within China, I do think they're better positioned than anyone else across the full spectrum. And in fact, a nod to Marcel Munch, shout out to him for a phenomenal video and breakdown that he had. I'm going to link that so that if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. I love the way he approached some of these things, the concept overview for NIO. It really ties in and aligns with my long-term view of NIO as an IDE. I'll link that video, the most recent one that I did, talking about that and why I chose NIO as my favorite long-term stock play and company. So time is the ultimate reveal. We'll see what happens, both heading into this week and then into the months ending out the year into 2026. I still think NIO is beautifully positioned, but even as a simple indicator, views on the channel have really dropped off in the last couple of weeks. So I've got a couple of things that I'm thinking with respect to that, but I'll keep tracking things because perhaps just sentiment has remained a little quiet in the short term, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens with NIO stock. If we see a pump and the stock price starts popping again to the upside, we'll see what happens, if maybe that will change, or if we get some positive news from the China-U.S. negotiations and talks. I think it's just a matter of time before something positive will be agreed to by both sides, both parties. So in any event, thanks for sticking around to the end, because I know some of you did. I'll see y'all again very soon.